Thank you.
Good afternoon. Nice to be amongst you, you know. It reminds me of my days when I was preparing for the IAS. And I will share with you my failures so that you are able to handle your failures. And successful people are those that can handle their failures. Because life is full of failures and successes. Normally, we don't dwell upon failures. We must accept the fact that there would be failures. And those that are ultimately successful are people who manage to handle the failures well. I will also, during the course of my presentation, try and touch upon generally, because I am not fully conversant with what is happening now in the examinations. But I think the fundamentals or fundamental principles of preparation remain the same. Because after all, it's a human being who's got to learn and then write. So fundamental principles remain the same, the approach remains the same, the content may change, the papers may change. I remember when I was appearing for the first time in 1979, Kothari Commission had given its report and the whole examination had changed. So no one had a clue what was coming. This year I just saw so many books are already available, questions are available, nothing was available. So in a way, it was a blessing in disguise because everyone didn't know anything. So we were discovering ourselves. Why I'm telling you this? I'm telling you this that I'm glad that some of you are smiling. Keep smiling. You know, the more tense you become, the lesser absorption of knowledge will come. And this should come from the fact that success or failure is not in your hands. You have only control over your karma, what you can do. So I will start with certain general postulates of evolving as a human being, which will help you mentally prepare yourself for what you're going to do. In this institute or maybe elsewhere, people will tell you what to study. But I am going to tell you how to approach studying that. Because to me, that's very critical, and I'll tell you what was the difference between my appearing in the exam for the first year and second year. In the first year, I qualified for the police. I wanted to become an IAS officer. I didn't. In second year, I qualified into the IAS. I'll tell you what was the difference. I was talking to some people here who did not qualify in the first year, or they have given 2 attempts and not qualified. So they will have to look at what exactly went wrong, and I'll try and delve upon some of the aspects. But the first thing that you must understand is that success or failure is not dependent on anybody else. It's dependent on you. So you should stop blaming anybody for a... And the reason is very simple. Even if somebody else is to be blamed for your failures, you can't do anything to others, can you? Can you do something to others? But you can do a lot to yourself. So the entire focus of your preparation has to be yourself. The moment you start blaming others for your failures, you are in trouble, I am telling you. If on account of your hard work, you get into the civil service, you can still be a failure. And that's even more frustrating. You must have read these days, some IAS officers are resigning from the service. I treat it as a failure. Because they couldn't accommodate. There is an American monk by the name of Reinhold Niebuhr. I don't know whether you've heard of him. He made a very seminal statement. He said, Lord, grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, courage to change things I can, and the wisdom to understand the difference between the two. So you must first look inwards and see what are your strengths and weaknesses. That's very important. Your preparation for the civil service, or for that matter anything, should begin from your own understanding of yourself. And you must also clearly understand that each individual is different. Each individual is differently endowed because he comes from a different family, he comes from a different region, his parents are different, his siblings are different, his conditions are different. So don't start competing with others. That will make you feel down. You know, someone is bright in something, the other chap is bright in something else. So someone's writing may be very good, the other is able to understand things much better. So don't get hassled by the fact that your neighbor is good in this and you are not good. Why I am saying this? I am saying this because you have therefore to focus on yourself, on what are your strengths. Now, how do you discover those strengths? First, to discover your strength is discuss with somebody who knows you well. It could be your friend, it could be your parents, it could be your siblings, anybody. Discuss with them threadbare, who have the courage to tell you both your positives and negatives. Of course, before you do all that, you must always try to be punctual. Because otherwise, if you treat it as a routine, कि आएंगे, चले जाएंगे, हो जाएगा, करना है, you can forget civil service. Until you are so brilliant that it doesn't matter when you walk in or walk out. Because your examination will start on time, mind you. You can't be seen walking inside. And I'm saying that with personal experience. In the 38 years of my civil service, there was not a single meeting that I was ever late. It's a matter of habit. Now, the sooner you get into that, it is a reflection of your discipline. Why don't you shift that side so that these ladies can come here? You have given them an easy way in. Next time again they'll be late. But anyway. So, my suggestion to you is, I was coming to the next point, but the latecomers have brought me back to that point straight away. There's another chair there. Why don't you shift that side? So, the next point, very important, is discipline. And discipline, until you are disciplined, I am telling you, you may be a genius, you may be an Einstein, then you'll make it. But I am talking of common people like you and I. Discipline means that you have a routine. जो मन में आया कर लिया नहीं है. It's a tough exam. The difference between who make it and don't make it are the people who are disciplined and not disciplined. ये in UP हमारी तरफ कहते हैं गांठ बांध के रखिए. It should be a fundamental principle that you have to decide for yourself. So I used to work. I started preparation around this time for the next year's exam, and I had, by the time the final exams came, I had revised my curriculum 7 times from this time to that time. How did it happen? So what I used to do was prepare a schedule for all the chapters that I have to study and work out how many hours I am going to study during the day. I can tell you about my schedule, plus please don't try and copy that. Each one has his own way of studying. So I used to wake up at around 5:30. From 6 I used to sit and study, 6 to 8. And I'll tell you why I did that and how I did that. 8 o'clock I used to have my breakfast and then sleep again. I used to sleep for about an hour and then wake up, and the next session used to begin at around 10:30 to 1 o'clock, have lunch, 1 to 2, 2 to 6 again, go out for a walk for about an hour, come back 7 to 9 and sleep. Now why I did this? I am not telling you this that you should do the same thing, but you should come out with your own schedule, whatever that schedule is. I don't know how many of you work out on a daily schedule. Do you? You have a daily schedule, this year, time to this time, this time to this time. Now, I had taken law as a paper, and it was a new paper, and we had to learn a lot of case studies. Now, the best time to learn is in the morning. I don't know whether you agree with me or not. Is it? Now, I was not used to getting up early in the morning, like even in those times, we used to study till late in the night and get up late in the morning. Now, how do you change that? Very difficult. If you're used to sleeping late in the night and getting up late, then to change that habit is very difficult. How did I do it? And that you can do with regard to any habit. You associate the new habit with something which you like. And I'll give you my own example. I am very fond of cricket. Even today, I am very fond of cricket. Thanks to this visit to Bangalore, I won't be able to watch the T20 today. I'll be on flight. I didn't know that, otherwise I would have changed my whole program and watched that on the television. I am so crazy about cricket. But I used it positively. How did I do it? India was visiting Australia. In those days, we didn't have televisions. And those that understand cricket in Australia, the session starts at 5:30 in the morning. Is that right? So I used to get up at 5:30 to listen to the commentary. And I used to look forward to it, so I didn't mind getting up. And we played 5 test matches, 5 days each, 25 days, and I started getting up early in the morning. For you young people, I can suggest another method. You select a girlfriend who wakes up early in the morning, who goes for a walk early in the morning, and then you will get up early in the morning without any problem, or vice versa, a boyfriend. And you have to pick up your own reason for changing your habits. But you have to decide whether you want to do that. If you can't decide for so what you must have. So if you come to this institute, fix a time, how much travel time. It is the utilization of time, discipline in utilization of time. Now, as of now, even today, I read about 100 books a year. As Secretary Government of India, I used to find time to read them. People ask me, "Kaise padhte the itna?" Very simple. Again, if you are get into that discipline of using time. So from my residence, I had a chauffeur-driven car. So coming to office, we used to take half an hour, and going back, it used to take 45 minutes. So I had clear 1 hour 15 minutes to read. And if I read 60 to 70 pages a day, I would be able to read 100 books a year. As simple as that. So life is very simple, we complicate it. And to understand its simplicity and to use it, what schedule that makes you disciplined. Now, how do you ensure that one is working out a schedule, the other is following? How do you do that? Announce it. Announce that you made the schedule so that your dost, your friends will make fun of you if you don't follow that schedule. Create a social pressure. Do that. Then it will be difficult. अरे वरना कहेगा ये कहता तो था सुबह उठते पर अभी सो रहा है. So create that pressure on you, and it's a very positive pressure. It's a dosti wala pressure, because no matter how bad I am, the world I want to portray myself as very good. No, everyone does that. यहाँ कोई निशान लगा, पाउडर लगा लिया, बदबू आ रही है. आजकल क्या चल रहा है वो मुंह क्या था? सॉरी, क्या चल रहा है आजकल? फॉग की जरूरत क्या अगर वैसी खुशबू है आपके अंदर? तो ये सब अपने आप को अच्छा दिखाने के लिए है आजकल, तो उसकी जरूरत नहीं है. आप बिल्कुल यू वर्क इट आउट इन अ मैनर, इन अ वेरी डिसिप्लिन्ड मैनर. Then the next step should be very critical in terms of selection of the subject. That's very important. I keep asking people, कौन सा subject ले रहे हो? Because that will ultimately, don't go by the trend. Someone told me geography में ज़्यादा आ रहे हैं, physics. वो trend हर साल change होता है, मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ. I know the other side. They do an analysis. और जो एक साल अच्छा आना है वो अगले साल तो बैठना है ही, मान के चलिएगा. You can rest assured of it. So don't go by trend. Go. So people who've been from science side or engineers would like to take a subject in humanities. No? How many of you are basically from the science background and want to take humanities as a subject? So lot of you are doing that. So have a detailed discussion with somebody who understands the subject. For example, if I have studied biology, then I would rather have anthropology as a humanities subject. Or, there are linked subjects. For example, when I took law, at our time we had to take 2 subjects. I took law as a second subject because as a master's in political science, I had already studied Indian constitution, international law. So some of it I knew. So this sort of you must have. And you can form your own small groups also. I was coming to the third point on how you can learn from each other. Form into like-minded small groups and keep exchanging and discussing. And how do you do that? While traveling, whether in a mobike or a cycle, I don't know, how do you commute, or in a car, you can actually discuss. Why waste that time? No, every moment for you is important. Every moment. अब तो खैर दाढ़ी बढ़ाना फैशन हो गया है. You look macho if you are macho ही शब्द है ना, लगा के दाढ़ी. हमारे टाइम पे तो हमने टाइम बचाने के लिए दाढ़ी बढ़ा ली थी. Because दाढ़ी बना 15-20 मिनट. I kept account of every minute. Because it's a tough exam. It's tougher now than it was then. So in that tough exam, you have to get into that mode. So I grew my beard. Of course, I didn't trim it as well as this guy does it. How much do you pay for it? You don't pay anything. Wow, you have your own barber shop. Okay. Okay. No, these days I find very well trimmed dadi, thanks to Virat Kohli. So that is one. The next is, as you get down to preparation, after you've diligently, deliberately selected a subject, then which books to study? Please, for heaven's sake, don't start with the kunjis. I don't know what they call here. क्या कहते हैं उसको, जो छोटी छोटी किताबें उसकी आ जाती हैं, आंसर, क्वेश्चन आंसर पे मत जाइए. Study the subject. You have to understand the subject and then look at questions. Don't start कि question के answers आपने सीखने शुरू कर दिए. In civil service, I don't think the nature of questions are such you can't learn from answers. You have to know the subject. So you have to get the appropriate guide for that particular subject. But I think the thrust has to be general studies. That is where now it is even more so important. General studies and essay writing, these are very important. Now let me start with essay writing first. In my time there was no essay, but our general study papers were such that it was like writing an essay. Now there is a technique of writing an essay. I don't know, is somebody teaching you to write that essay? So you have to understand that there are certain sets of topic. If you know the technique, you will be able to write an essay on any subject. And technique is first understanding of the subject that you take up for the writing of essay. If you don't know the facts of the essay, please don't take up that essay. So some are philosophical, sociological, but if certain facts are to be ascertained, you should have those facts. I would, now what I do is, whenever I have to guide, I say, pick up a problem solving related essay. So there's an issue that is engaging with the country, you take up that. But what you have to do from now onwards is, number one, start thinking logically. Now you'll ask, how do I start thinking logically? What is the way? It's just not like that. I'll take you a technique. Every morning, whichever newspaper that comes to your residence, read the editorial aloud. Padhiye usse. Why? Because editorial gives an essence of an issue. So it helps you in 2-3 ways. Number one, it helps you understand the issue, because that will help you in general studies in any case. Because there are few things you will not be able to understand, you will research and then understand it. So you know that subject. You develop awareness and knowledge about that subject. Okay? And then you will also know how an argument is logically built. So if whatever issue comes up, you will say, first understand what is the nature of the issue. And I'll give you an example. I'll pick up any example. You give any subject, every essay can be actually put into that framework. First is, what is the issue? Then the next is, why is that issue? Once you understand what and why, then what has happened? And then in the final phase, you say, what can be done in your limited understanding? And if you can break every subject into these questions, in the answer to these questions, you can come up with a good essay. But it won't happen overnight. Yeah, today Anil Swarup sahab told, हमने पढ़ा समझ में नहीं आप क्या why, what, who, how करें इसमें. It won't happen that way. It will build over time. The good news is that you all started early, meaning thereby you have your exams next year. You still have almost a year to hone that skill of how to approach a particular issue. So for example, I'll take a very absurd topic. Take any absurd topic. This photograph here is totally useless. This is the subject. Don't throw me out for that. Your organizer is sitting there, so he might throw me out. So is thoroughly useless. Now, if I were to write an essay, whether this photograph is useless or not, take any absurd subject, you should be in a position to write an essay. So first you will write this photograph. What is it? What does it portray? You've been told there is two stoppers. Okay. So what purpose does it serve hanging here? Except that it looks very beautiful. So see, you are gradually building your argument. How does it impact you? Do you learn something from there? Can you aspire to be the photograph to be shot next year? No, once you raise questions in your mind, in the answers to those questions, you will be able to write an essay. Try and do it on any topic. Instead of this table should be removed from the class. Then you will understand what is the role of this table sitting here. Can there be a better option than this? Can there be an option that all those that are standing could be sitting here? Could there be a chair with a board here on which you could write? So some space can be saved here. So you must, on any essay paper, you have to raise questions and then list them out logically one after the other. This through practice you will understand, and practice after reading some essays which follow this logic. So that's how your essay can be done. Now coming to general studies, I'm sure you all must be guided on how to go about it, but general studies has ceased to be general studies. It's a specialized knowledge of that particular area, geography, Indian economy. I've seen that. They're very specific details. So you have to be as good as a person who's done his bachelor's in economics. And please, for heaven's sake, at least at this stage, don't look at the questions at all. Look at the syllabus. You understand the difference between the two? What are you looking at these days? Questions, no? No. Wow. All of those that are shaking their heads are going to make it to the IAS. No, don't do it now. Do it after 6 months. Look at questions when you have to practice. I'll come to the practice part later on. Right now, you must acquire knowledge based on the syllabus. Syllabus clearly given. I was told this morning someone spoke to you on which subject did you speak? Of the economics. Now that's a fundamental document of Indian economy. It's a Bible for you. Economy is concerned. You must know that, because in understanding this survey, you will have to answer many other questions because you won't understand everything that's given there. So as you explore further, now you don't have to necessarily go to him to ask questions. I'm sure there would be somebody in your group who's done economics and taking economics as a paper. Now, it benefits him or her to take. I don't know whether you realize it. When you teach somebody else, you learn much more, because those guys you're teaching is going to ask questions of you. So that's how you have these general studies papers. You have to become as good as a person who's done his master's in that particular subject based on the curriculum that you have. Now this is as far as the initial preparation is concerned. After 6 months, that is immediately after your preliminaries, when you have about how much, 3 months you have, 3-4 months before the main exam, 3 months. That period should not be for learning. That period should be for writing. You know, the difference between my first year not qualifying the IAS, second year was writing. I had so much knowledge that I didn't know how to write in half an hour. That's the time you get to write an answer. So second year, the only difference was I practice writing. It helped me in 2-3 ways. Number one, I had come to a situation in the second year where I didn't have to count the number of words that I had written. I could make out while writing how many words I have written. I could make out clearly. And I could fit an answer in those many words, because I don't know whether you still have it. They give you word limit so that you should know. You can't spend time on counting it. You should know how much, and that comes through practice. The second, a very important associated part is you must take care of your physical self. You should be physically fit. Believe me, in first year, I was in the habit of lying down and studying. So I had forgotten how to sit for 3 hours. So I remember when I sat and wrote the paper, my body was aching. Immediately after exam, when I was on the floor, I did not realize it. because I was learning, and there was so much going into my head. First, I was finding it difficult to write it at that time, and then I was physically exhausted. So you have to keep yourself physically fit for it also. So this is briefly, I am talking about the approach. Now, many of you would be appearing for the second or the third. How many of you have appeared before? So a lot of you have appeared before. So what you have to do is to try and analyze as to why didn't you qualify. Will somebody share his thoughts? Has somebody analyzed it? Will someone come out? See, never mind telling your shortcomings. I mean, sometimes we hide it, no, with powder, all the marks. Don't do that. Share it. Why? Because no one is perfect on this earth. Everyone has problems. People who qualified at the IAS have done very well in the IAS have had their problems. I have had my problems. I'll share some of the reason why I'm sharing with you all the problems that I had was for you not to feel shy about mistakes, problems and failures. It happens with everybody. I failed with the It's there in my book. In the last few chapters, I mentioned how I was unable to protect an officer who had to resign from the IAS under political pressure. I couldn't do. I felt terrible. But that's how life is. I learned my lessons during that, and when an occasion came next time, when the CBSE paper leak happened, I defended the chairman CBSE and I could defend her. So failure is natural. It happens. You know, successful people, as I said, are those that learn from those failures and come out of it. So can somebody share who did not qualify, has he or she analyzed? Good. Very good. Anybody else? What? Oh, sorry, lack of? Okay, so this is a very important point that he's making. Sometimes we attempt to acquire fresh knowledge close to the exams. Don't do it. In the last 3 months before the exams, you should not be learning anything new, except when it's exceptional, when you really feel that. But don't do it as a routine. Your preparation should be over 3 months before the exams. That's how you should make your schedule. Your schedule should be such that you should be ready 3 months before. And as you write, that you have to spend time on those. Maybe those subjects where you are unable, you think that you are able to write and you are unable to write. Anybody else want to contribute to this discussion? No one else? Yes. Inconsistency. You have a lovely handwriting. Wonderful. So leverage that. You know, I had a terrible hand. Terrible handwriting. So how do I hide it? I can't. So I had to do something else. I changed my pen. So when I used to write the usual fountain pen, in those days we used to have fountain pen, I used to feel very bad. So that time there were something called a felt pen. I don't know whether they have it. They came up, I tried, and that I found that my writing looked better than what I wrote. So you have to find all this, but your lovely hand. Anybody else? Don't feel shy. Yes.
And there's no one to actually guide you what to study.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said it. You know, I am so glad. You have a bright future. I'll tell you, we don't realize this. There is a jungle out there. And unless you focus on the right material, you will feel lost. You know, I was, even before the IAS, I was a student of political science. And the political thought, the more I read, the more I got confused. The best of books, I got confused. So instead of clarity, I was getting more and more confused. It was then that I discovered that I have to be focused on what I have to do. There has to be clarity. Someone said, use the word clarity. These 2-3 things are very important. You should be able to talk on a subject to your group. That's clarity. So for example, if I were you, I'll form into a group of say 5 or 10 people, and suppose the class starts at say 10 o'clock. He said, okay, we'll come at 9:30 and one of us is going to give a lecture on that particular subject. Others are going to learn and I'm going to be tested. Do that, it helps. It really helps. Clarity will come. So when you start talking about it, you realize, ye wala aspect to maine dekha hi nahi. And You know, the ultimate is that thoughts should start flowing seamlessly through your pen. That's an art that you have to develop. Like while speaking, thoughts flowing fluently through your mouth. Now, I remember when I was in BA, Bachelor of Arts, I wanted to be a debater. But you don't become debater just like that by wanting. You have to do something about it. So I remember in a debating competition, I had gone to a rostrum. And in those days, what I used to do was I used to write a debate and mug it up. You know, mug it up? Learn it by heart. And stand there and just pour it out. So on that day, I forgot. Maybe I was nervous or something. I stood there for 15 seconds. My mouth was tongue-tied. I couldn't speak. I used to walk out. Major failure. Then I realized that I have to build brick by brick. It's not that by only appearing in the civil service exam, you will never qualify. You have to prepare for it. So what did I do? I did a drill, which I'll tell you, those of you that qualify in the interview, on how to approach the interview. You have to be, I was not as fluent as I am today. I can speak both Hindi and English very fluently. So what I did was the practice that I was telling you, newspapers, read it aloud for 15 days, one month. And then thereafter, the second drill was read it aloud, keep the paper, and then speak the same thing in my own words, whether it is coming logically, whether it's coming fluently. And those days we used to have tape recorders. Now, of course, in the phone you can tape it. I used to tape and understand where am I going wrong. So there's a lot of effort that goes into it. It doesn't happen just like that. Same is the case of writing. You have to practice and see. So what I am suggesting is make small groups and interact with each other. Today, WhatsApp, apart from good morning, good evening and jokes, you can use social media for a variety of positive purposes. Pick up a subject, exchange notes on that, discuss on that. It enables you to think clearly and logically. That's very important. Your mind should be wired to look at things logically. And that can happen if you can arrive at a situation where the absurd topic that I give, even on that topic, you will be able to think logically and talk logically and write logically. Now, I can go on and on. I have had a very tough night. I'm still feeling sleepy, but seeing these bright people, I'm still awake. So what I'll do is I'll stop here. I'll open the floor for questions and thereafter I'll make some concluding remarks. Is that okay with you? So whatever questions you have, including those relating to Aishwarya Rai and Amitabh Bachchan, you can ask. Whatever question. Anything under the sun. If I don't know the answer, I'll say no. I don't know the present day actors and singers, so I won't be able to answer that. But my time, not the Suraiya and Saigal times, Mukesh, Rafi and Lata are fine with me. Okay? Okay, thank you. And you can now ask your questions. Yes. Resignation. You want me to talk about resignation right now?
Let me be precise for the question.
So, do you have a pen or something that I can write? You know, now that some of you are aspiring to become civil servants, I have a totally different take about civil service, which comes out in the book that I had mentioned, Not Just a Civil Servant. So, if you have any doubts about the potential, I would suggest if you read this book, all that doubts will go. Because I do believe that there are enormous limitations and problems in the civil service, but despite everything, you can do a lot of good. Lot of good to a lot of people, and it gives you enormous amount of satisfaction. My book begins with a chapter where I have stated that I became an IAS officer because my father wanted me to become an IAS officer. I didn't even know what was IAS. I remember I may have been 7-8 years when I just started reading and writing. I discovered a sheet of paper where my father had actually designed my future, and he wanted me to be an IAS officer, and I became an IAS officer. But after 38 years in the service, in the last chapter of my book, I have written that if I were to be born again, I'd like to be an IAS officer all over. Not because of my father's choice, because my choice. Because there's no service in the world where you can do so much good to so many people. So that's my take on the civil service. The guys that have resigned, I've tried to speak to them. The others who wanted to resign, I've prevented them from resigning. Because the problem is that they think that you're going to change the whole world becoming an IAS officer. It doesn't work that way. You have to understand your own limitations, and within those limitations, you should try and do, and you can do a lot of good. You can derive enormous amount of satisfaction. In fact, this book is all about satisfaction that I derived, and that's why I say, if I were to be born again, I'd like to be an IAS officer all again. So again, as I keep telling everybody, there is no such thing as objective reality. Apne aap mein, there is nothing right, wrong, good, bad or ugly. It's your subjective understanding that it becomes good, bad or ugly. So the same film may be liked by somebody, may not be liked by somebody. Same actions, someone may like, others may not like. There's nothing right or wrong with that. It's your perception, how you evolve as an individual, how you grow. If you understand the limitations of the civil service, you will not feel frustrated. Despite those limitations, you can do a lot of good work. That's what this book is all about. So if you find and get an opportunity, read it. You'll feel inspired in the sense of becoming a civil servant, that you're moving in the right direction. You would want to become a civil servant. That's what whoever has read it has told me, that we had a different view of civil service. I think we can get into civil service. Any other? Yes.
I have to study the same, not the same thing, but I follow the same routine on the basis for over a year. So, how to get out of that limbo?
I'll tell you how to do it. I'm glad you raised this point. First of all, that same thing will not come immediately thereafter. So how I did it, I'll tell you, you can drive. So in the morning from say 6 o'clock to 8, I used to study case laws because I wanted to learn something. Then after breakfast, after getting up again, I used to do a particular topic on political science. And then in the afternoon, I used to do general studies, and general studies again, 1 hour economics, 1 hour. So it was not monotonous. I was switching from one thing to the other. And then I used to come back to this after doing my entire course, come back to this. So it doesn't become boring. Second, if you can form into those groups, as I was suggesting, it will never be boring. You will find new dimensions emerging. See, I see so many bright people sitting here. I'm sure you should be able to constitute, and you don't have to physically meet. It can be a WhatsApp conversation. And here, of course, when you come here, you come a bit early and I have a sit around a table and have a discussion. So then the monotony gets broken. I agree with you, sometimes it does become a monotonous, but your passion and your objective keep you going. You want to be there, so some sacrifice will have to be made. You have to create interest out of it. And for example, in economics as a subject is very fascinating because it's so relatable. No? Similarly, I don't know whether we were doing political thought. It's so fascinating because you understand human beings. You understand logically any aspect. So all this becomes, you have to find fascination for that. You have to work out your own fascination for it. Yes.
So my question is like, what is it? Why? What is the driving factor for you?
Okay. So let me give you an instance for it.
Yeah.
Let me explain to you.
You want me to explain the other question also?
No. This itself is going to take time because this is very critical.
Yeah. Sure.
The critical part is that why do you do what you do? Why are you sitting here? You just decided you want to get to civil service. You are here, or you heard someone by the name of Anil Swarup is coming. You came here. Or it's very hot outside and it's only air conditioned place here and you're sitting here, or your girlfriend is sitting 3 rows ahead and you want to impress her that you are getting into civil service. There could be any reason, because except a madman, everyone does for a reason. So I gave it a term called kick. What gives you a kick in doing what you do? And where did this kick come from? Let me tell you a small personal experience. When I went back to UP after doing a stint in Delhi, I was posted as Secretary Horticulture. In those days, UP was going through very, very tough times. And this minister of mine sent me a note or order stating that this deputy director should be suspended without giving any reason. So I was surprised. He's given no reason and he wants me to suspend him. So I rang him up. I asked him, why do you want to suspend him? He said he has not come to meet me. I said, this is too small a thing for suspension, but I'll speak to the officer. And this, sorry? See, I don't understand Kannada. Either you translate what you're saying, then I can respond. That man is getting crushed. See, he's feeling very uneasy standing there. So he's going out. Okay. So I spoke to the minister and he told me this. So I spoke to the officer concerned. I asked him, he wants to suspend you. Why haven't you met him? He said, sir, I have met him on a number of occasions, but the manner in which he wants to meet me, I can't meet him. Those from UP will understand. This minister wanted some money from him and he refused to give it. So he was asked to sit. So what do you do? So there is a provision in UP that if you disagree with the minister, you can route the file to the chief secretary. So I routed the file through the chief secretary. I spoke to him, he said, "Mere paas bhej do file," so I sent it to the file. Now, minister did not have the courage to speak to the chief secretary. In those times, corrupt people were not so abrasive. They were very timid, so he couldn't speak to him. So this guy, despite being suspended, was not suspended. But the minister then spoke to the chief minister. Not on this issue, some other issue, and he got me transferred. I don't know how, but I was transferred. So the chief secretary was very upset. He said, "You wanted to save that officer? No, you have been shifted out." So I told him, "Sir, what is the problem? Why are you worried? In civil service, transfer is like death. It is inevitable." And then, like in Hindu philosophy, you are born again. You commit the same crimes. So then he started smiling and he knew, see, I didn't care about transfers at all. Because I am a great believer, issues over which you have no control, you should not bother. So I was transferred to an organization, State Finance Corporation, which had made losses for 7 years. So my job was to wind it up. So everyone thought, here is a gentleman who's come to take away our naukri, our service. I was also worried, what do you do? But then I got a bright idea, and now going into the bright idea, I shared that with all the officers and they all agreed, "Sir, this is very good. But how do you make it happen?" The idea was that it is a bit technical, but okay, let me leave that. So I did that. So then how do you make that idea happen? See, in our country, everyone has an idea, but no one knows how to do it. For the simple reason, for an idea to fructify in a country like ours, it has to be politically acceptable, socially desirable, technologically feasible, financially viable, administratively doable, and judicially tenable. It's very difficult to do things. So what did I do? I called the most corrupt general manager for a cup of tea. Why? Can anybody answer? Because, all corrupt people are very efficient. Because otherwise they will be behind the bars. So I called him. I asked him, "Yaar, ye batao." I'll use this phrase in Hindi, but I'll translate for those. "यार ये बताओ, इस संस्था में कुछ बचा तो है नहीं, तुम चूसोगे क्या?" "Sir, कैसी बात कर रहे? Sir, no matter how dishonest you are, no one accepts to being dishonest." मैंने कहा, "देखो, whatever you've done, बीती ताही बिसार दे, forget it. Now you have to work with me." "हाँ sir, I'll try my best." So all credit to him. He worked very hard, and we turned around that organization. It became profitable. And when it became profitable, some other officer wanted to come in my place, because then there's Makhan Malai there. So I was shifted out. It didn't really matter to me again. But I kept track of this officer. And I heard very good things. He said, "Sir, na ye khata hai, na khane deta hai, laga rehta hai, kaam karta hai." So I called him for a cup of tea again. These days you call it chai pe charcha. In my times it is over a cup of tea. अंग्रेजी हिंदी का फर्क है सर. अच्छा, so I asked him, "यार तुम्हारी बड़ी तारीफ करते हैं, people are very, तुम्हें हृदय परिवर्तन कैसे हो गया तुम्हारा?" Now he made a very remarkable statement. He said, "Sir, when you used to appreciate me in front of all 300 officers and pat my back and say, the organization is turning around because of this officer, sir, मुझे जो kick मिलती थी वो पहले कहीं नहीं मिलती थी." Now the point I am trying to drive here is, each one of you has to find his or her own kick. What drives you? You ask this question now. Now this word I have used in my book. At a subsequent time, I use this again. I was doing this scheme called Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana. You might have heard of it, the health insurance scheme, which was doing very well, and it was being recognized world over. So when Obama took over as president in the US, his advisors rang me up. They said, Mr. Swarup, can you come over to Washington and make a presentation to us on the health insurance? Because in US, we are having a serious problem with health insurance. So I said, our insurance scheme is totally different from yours. I don't think I'll be able to help you. But they insisted. So I went over to Washington, went to a place called Brookings Institute, which houses all the advisors, and I made a presentation on RSBY. During the presentations, there were representatives of Gates Foundation, Melinda Gates Foundation, and Rockefeller Foundation, and other foundations. So after the foundations, we are having a cup of tea, and this gentleman from Gates, you have heard of Gates Foundation, no? So this gentleman from Gates Foundation walked up to me and said, Mr. Swarup, you are a civil servant, but you seem to be very passionate about this scheme. What are you getting beyond the salary that the government gives you? Fundamental question. Why do you do what you do? So I asked him a counter question. I said, Gates Foundation gives millions of dollars to poor countries. Why do you do that? What do you get out of it? He said, well, that's a job. But more than that, we derive a lot of satisfaction out of helping poor people. I said, you've answered my question. I told him, the scheme RSBY is meant for the poorest of the poor, many of whom would have been dead but for this scheme. So they and their families, their good wishes, somehow anyhow come back to me. That's good enough a kick for me to continue to do what I am doing. So you have to decide whether you want to do. And then I narrated an incident to him. That in this scheme, I used to visit these small and hospitals that were impaneled. I was visiting one of the hospitals and I was talking to a patient. Suddenly I heard a very feeble voice from behind, Beta idhar aao. So I turned around and saw a very old lady flashing that smart card and calling me. Someone had told her that I had something to do with the scheme. So I went to her. I bent down. Aja Mata ji, aap theek to hain? She says, Beta, main bahut takleef mein hu. I am in a lot of pain. But these hospital people have, this was in Hindi conversation. Hospital people have looked after me very well. Then I said, then you will become all right and you will go to your house. She said, Kaisa ghar? What house? I don't have any house. I used to live in a hut, in a jhopdi. I used to beg. And I fell ill. I had this smart card. She didn't say smart card. She just flashed it to me. I had this. So my neighbor, he saw this card and brought me here. And they are looking after me. So I said, फिर तो जब इतनी सेवा कर रहे हैं, आपकी हो जाएगी तबीयत ठीक. She insisted, no, मेरी उम्र इतनी हो गई है, मैं ऊपर वाले के पास जाऊंगी. And finally, she made a very remarkable statement. She said, ऊपर वाले जाके एक बार जरूर कहूंगी, तुम्हारी स्कीम बहुत अच्छी है. Now this is the kick. Someone asked me, why do you do? So you have to define your own kick. So my friends, the key to success is enjoy the moments that you're in. The past is dead and gone. Please don't unnecessarily brood over your failures or mistakes or उसने क्या कह दिया, उसने ऐसा क्यों कह दिया, वो भूल जाइए आपको जिंदगी, दोस्ती दुश्मनी भूल जाइए. You have to be extremely focused on the present of doing what you're doing. And that is the difference of people who succeed and don't succeed. So that's what it is.
Thank you so much, sir. Actually, my question of why has made you to share some of your experiences. So I wish this session should be in such a way that not about like how to approach the examination and all, because we are actually having some GB amount of data, sir. So many GBs in
Correct.
YouTube about how to approach
Absolutely.
the exam. But after going to the civil services, there are very few videos who are telling about what is happening. It's like a suspense game for us.
There is no, if you read the book, it's totally transparent.
Exactly.
I have laid bare my failures.
So,
it's a classic case. Many of us think that we are good singers, no? आप लोग भी गाते वाते होंगे जरूर. मैं भी समझता था मैं बहुत बड़ा गायक हूँ. So IIT कानपुर में कल्चरल फेस्टिवल हुआ, तो I had become by then a good debater. So I had gone for as a debating competition. I thought मैं गाने में भी participate करूँगा. So गाना वाला एक दिन पहले था, तो नाम अनाउंस हुआ, मैं गया गाना शुरू किया. I picked up the wrong note. Within 15 seconds, I was booed out of the hall. Just booed out. Imagine यार, आप इतने लोग बैठे हो, ये बेकार है, गधा है, बाजा. उसके बाद मेरी हिम्मत हो गई आपके सामने आने की. I was totally distraught. So a senior of mine gave me a very nice advice. He said, यार, that was not your forte. And वो हो गया यार, अब तुम क्यों परेशान हो रहा? तुम्हारा असली तो कल है debate. Why don't you focus on that? So after some time, I got convinced. And next day, the same audience, my name was announced. And the response of the audience was, Gayak aa gaya, Gayak hai. Imagine. But I had learnt my lessons. I spoke as never before, and I won the first prize in the national competition, and I have never looked back thereafter. I address audience ranging from 300 missile scientists in Hyderabad to 300 nuclear scientists in Kalapakkam, to people like you, to chief executive officers. I'm just coming from IIM Bangalore, executives, MBA executives. It doesn't really make a difference to me. I can talk to any audience, anywhere in the world, any place. But that's the confidence you get over a period of time when you learn. And the fundamental essence is that learn from your failures. Don't think failures. Everyone fails. Yeah, I failed. I don't know how many times. Again, in my book, I have taken pride in my failures because that were my stepping stones to what I am today. So don't worry about failures so long as you understand yourself. छुपाइए नहीं. एक तो हम लोग क्या करते हैं, कोई दाग होता है उस पर पाउडर लगा लेते हैं. When I was doing this coal auctions, so we used to commit mistakes. It's not that we didn't. And the journalists wanted to know those mistakes. So when I used to come for a press conference, I used to start admitting my mistakes to begin with. खबर निकल गई सब. खबर कहाँ बची? खबर तो तब होगी जब उसने ढूंढा हो. मैंने खुद ही बता दिया ये कमी. And I used to commit that I'll improve, I'll change. I did change. So it happens. Failures do happen. Okay? Any other question? I'll keep sitting in between because I'm a bit tired. Otherwise, I would love to walk. Yes. No, it's very simple. Again, that you learn over a period of the clarity of thought. Now, one, and I keep telling my officers, I addressed officers of all seniorities when they join the service in the second phase, after 10 years, after 20 years, after 30 years. I tell them. One, if the order is contrary to law, there's no question of doing it. So that's a fairly clear cut. Let him do what he wants to do to me. I will not do it. Because ultimate price I am going to pay, so I will not. There are areas where there are grey areas, where the law is not clear. There, my logic was very simple. It was, if the benefit went to a poor man, I would interpret the law in his favor. I did that, and no one questioned. No one. I must have interpreted law whatever little name that I got is in terms of helping the poor through law. Because I believe that when British left this country, they took justice with them, left behind laws and outlaws. So हम law की पूछ पकड़ लेते हैं. अरे ultimate bottom line is justice. Don't flout a law, but if law allows you to help a poor man, do it. But if it allows you to help a rich man, then think twice about it. Then go through a process and do it. गरीब के लिए तो मैं आँख बंद करके कर देता था. But if it was for a rich individual, then I used to examine it further and then take a call. Now, there are issues when there is no flout. For example, a minister tells me to transfer an officer. Okay, it's his right, legally perfect, but it may create negative signals. So I will try and convince the minister in believing that this may be harmful to you. He may agree, he may disagree. But if he disagrees, then I'll go by his order. I'll give you a clear example. And there are many such examples in my book where I came with this dilemma, and you'll know. But this one I'll tell you, because some of you may have come across the CBSE paper leak that happened last year. Now, it was a very strange time. What had happened was, when the new chairman CBSE took over as chairperson, she is one of the finest officers in the country. And she took a decision that CBSE should not be publishing books, because that was the job of NCERT. And CBSE itself was publishing books worth 800 crores with everyone getting a cut. So there was a lot of corruption in that. So she said, she stopped it. She asked me, I said, please go ahead. She stopped it. Now all this publisher lobby got after her. They couldn't do anything to her because she had a great reputation. Then what happened was, this leak happened. So these publishers got an opportunity to poke her. The day this leak happened, I had to be with my father, who was very sick in Dehradun, and I got to know about it. So I sent a message to my minister, and I asked him to brief the media immediately so that all apprehensions are dispelled. He didn't do that. Then I was bringing my father on the ambulance from Dehradun to Delhi, and on the way, and I have those evidence with me, I kept sending him messages telling him, why don't you or chairman speak to them? But he didn't allow. By the evening, the whole issue had blown out of proportion. So I got my father admitted in the hospital. In the morning, I went to meet the minister, and his statement was, ये chairman CBSE को हटाना पड़ेगा. So I asked him, क्या गलती है उनकी? बोले नहीं, situation diffuse करने के लिए. हमने कहा साहब शी इज अ वेरी फाइन ऑफिसर, यू एंड आई नो दैट इट्स नॉट हर फॉल्ट, वी नो व्हाट द फैक्ट आर, बेटर वुड बी टू टेल द मीडिया. नहीं 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 अनिल जी हटाना पड़ेगा. सो ही वाज सेइंग दैट. नाउ I use those phrases, no, politically acceptable, socially desirable. So I have to come up with this politically acceptable option for him. So what did I tell him? I told him, sir, today you remove Anita Karwal. All these guys are going to come after you after that. Abhi to she's a buffer. Then they will ask for your head. It's becoming political. ऐसा है क्या? And then he agreed with me. Now see, that's the art of explaining things. And the objective was clear. But had he overruled me, I would have had to remove her. No issue. So you have to take a call at that point in time, because ultimate decision maker is the politician. You can't say I have fought with politicians, but ultimately did what they wanted me to do. But I put my views clearly in front of PM. I used to say what I had to say. People ask me, तुम ऐसे कैसे बोल देते हो PM से? हमने कहा यार मुझे इनसे कुछ चाहिए ही नहीं. No, this is a very fundamental thing. If you don't expect from somebody else, you are very strong. Your strength is determined by lack of expectations. I didn't expect. I didn't go to anyone for any favor, any politician for any favor, and they knew it very well. You take me as it is. So see, clarity of thought helps you in your life. You should be clear in your mind. ये करना है, ये नहीं करना है. वो भुगतने के लिए तैयार रहिए. उसमें क्या है, हर चीज दूर से अच्छी लगती है चीज, हर जगह प्रॉब्लम है. कौन सी ऐसी जगह प्रॉब्लम नहीं. जो रिजाइन कर रहे हैं उसमें से एक बंदे ने 3 महीने पहले रिजाइन किया था, आके रोता है मेरे पास, कहता है सर मैंने आपकी बात मान लेनी चाहिए थी. मैंने कहा यार गलती मेरी होगी, मैं तो शायद समझा ही नहीं पाया. वो समझते हैं बाहर वाली दुनिया बहुत अच्छी है, करो यार वहां जाके. सी एवरीवेयर, देयर इज नो परफेक्ट सिचुएशन, हर जगह प्रॉब्लम. एनी अदर क्वेश्चन? यस.
Like, can you just tell us reason or where you were able to handle the dilemma in the most, exemplary fashion? Like, you later realize that it was the thing that had to do ethically, and the action which you took later made you proud of your.
No, I am proud of every action I took. Very proud. No, I know there are a number of case studies in this book. Just go through it. You just read it one after the other, you will find case studies. In fact, some people were suggesting, why don't you reschedule and it becomes a book on ethics in bureaucracy. Because I faced enormous amount of ethical dilemmas. Not once, number of occasions, but I had to say what I had said. I'll give you an example of it's a very interesting, it was not that big an ethical dilemma, but in certain sense, yes. I had just become special secretary to Mr. Kalyan Singh, and we were having a chat at his residence, and other gentlemen there were the Director General of Police and the Chief Secretary, and the Chief Minister was very agitated. There was a by-election and 7 meetings had been scheduled, and he said, "मैं 7 meetings कैसे करूँगा? आप 2 काट दीजिए बाद वाली." And when he said this, the Chief Secretary and DGP both agreed with him. हाँ साहब आप कैसे करेंगे? I was new to the assignment, so I said, "Sir, वैसे तो आपका ये राजनीतिक निर्णय है, it's your political decision, but I was district magistrate before I came here, and when Chief Minister visits a place, there's a lot of enthusiasm, expectations. So even if you go for 2 minutes, show your face, you should go there, not cut it out." He looked at me like this and said, "मैं कैसे करूँगा?" She was very annoyed with me, or at least appeared annoyed, and my Chief Secretary was nudging me to keep quiet. So then I told the Chief Minister, "Sir, it is my duty to tell you what I think correct. Decision is yours." Then there was pin drop silence for 15 seconds. Thereafter, the Chief Minister says, "Anil ji, aap sahi keh rahe hain, you are right." Now the same Chief Secretary immediately stopped nudging and said, "Haan sir, sahi keh raha hai." I had forgotten about it. I have narrated this in my book, but I had forgotten about it. It was much later, when I was over with Mr. Kalyan Singh, in one of the chance meetings, when you're having a cup of tea, he said, "Anil ji, have you ever thought that despite being so brash, I kept you with me? Why did you behave in that manner?" I said, "I didn't ask you to bring me here. If you disliked me, I spoke my mind. If you dislike me, I'll go somewhere else." Well, no, I kept you because of this. And then he narrated this incident to me. He had noticed everything. And he said, okay, even in the current regime, I remember I was Secretary Education. and I get a call from the PM office that can you explain health insurance to the Prime Minister? I said, what have I to do with health insurance? They said, we've been trying to explain to the PM for past 3 years, and you have had some experience in health insurance. I think you will be able to explain. So I asked them, what is my locus standi? He said, what we will do is we'll have a review of health and also have the review of education, so you'll be present. In case the Prime Minister asks you, you explain to him. I said, fine. So I went there at his residence, 6:30 in the evening, meeting started. So health secretary made the presentation and then the Prime Minister turns towards me, Anil ji, aap rahe hain health insurance mein, aapki kya rai hai? Now I was warned in advance that my rai is something that he could get angry with, because the PMO staff had told him and he disagreed with them and used to get very angry. So I spoke for 20 minutes. He gave me a very patient hearing. At the end of which he said, Anil ji, aap theek kehte hain. So मुझसे, I mean, some of the joint secretary didn't believe what had happened. So some people asked me, यार तुम ये कैसे कह देते? हमने कहा बड़ा simple है यार, I don't expect from anything from him. Post retirement, I didn't go to meet him. I didn't ask for anything. I have no interest in doing anything else. I enjoy talking to people like you. If I were in government job, would I be able to come here and meet with you? So I am loving my moments. So that's why I keep telling, love your moments. Whatever you like, you do it. So you can call it an ethical dilemma, whether I should speak or not, whether I should keep quiet. It's an ethical dilemma because if I don't speak, I'm not doing my duty. If I speak, I could be fired. He did get angry with me. So that's a dilemma. There are instances after instances, not one, in coal, in education, in everywhere. I mean, there was another instance. You can call it an ethical dilemma. I remember I was heading project monitoring group in UPA 2 when everything that could have gone wrong had gone wrong. And I was asked to fast track projects above 1,000 crores. So, I mean, it was a very dicey thing because everyone was looking at going wrong, scam ho gaya. So we somehow managed to do things. I mean, that's another story there, but I'll tell you what happened. I was getting increasingly frustrated because Minister for Environment and Forest was sitting on files worth 58,000 crores. She was not signing them. She wanted money. So I was very agitated. I wrote a note to Cabinet Secretary to inform the PM that this will break into another scam. He didn't do anything. He has no understanding of administration. So I was getting increasingly agitated. I said, I'll like to go back. Since I'm unable to deliver, why should I stay here? And the government had asked me to do that. So one day, Cabinet Secretary rang me. Cabinet Secretary is the top bureaucrat in the country. He rang me up. Montek wants to talk to you. Montek Singh Ahluwalia. He was then the Deputy Chairman Planning Commission. So I went to meet him. Montek tells me, Anil ji, you are doing a wonderful job. I said, I am very frustrated. I want to go back. What happened? I said, I can handle civil servant, but one of your ministers is sitting on files worth 58,000 crores. He said, is that so? Yes, sir. Have you spoken to the Prime Minister? I said, I have no access to the Prime Minister. In any case, to that Prime Minister, you didn't know what you spoke, what he heard, there was no reality. So I came back. In the evening, the Cabinet Secretary rings me up. Anil, did you meet Montek? I said, yes, sir. What did you tell him? I said, I told him everything. You told him everything? Yes, sir. That is why the Prime Minister was on the line and asking me, why is Anil so agitated? Why is this not happening? I said, I hope you've told him why I'm so agitated. To which he didn't reply. You know, I will digress a bit. At the end of book, which I have not written, people ask me, why do you want to become an IAS officer? The answer is very simple. Is this the only service? If you are honest, you can survive. If you are dishonest, you can thrive. If you are efficient, you will become Secretary Government of India. If you are inefficient, you might become Cabinet Secretary Government of India. So, which service gives you that opportunity? So, here was a Cabinet Secretary not doing his job. But as luck would have it, I happened to meet Mr. Oscar Fernandez, who I had worked with as Labour Minister. He was Labour Minister. And we had a very good equation. So, we met him, a chance meeting. I asked him, sir, are you aware that this madam is taking money in the name of that madam? So he said, हाँ अनिल जी सुना तो मैंने भी है. तो मैंने कहा सर ऐसा है कि if the money is actually going to the right madam, it's okay. But if she is taking money in her name and not sending the money, it's criminal. I said, you must inform the family because you're close to the family. So I don't know what happened. 7 days down the line, the first madam was shown the door. The then Jayanti tax was abolished. She was shifted out. So there was an ethical dilemma whether I should raise this issue. Anything could happen. I raised it. I was aware of the consequences. If they shifted me, so be it. यार कोई नौकरी छोटी थोड़ी ना कर देंगे. तनख्वाह तो उतनी मिलनी है. हमारी डिमांड थोड़ी सी. अच्छा अपनी एक्सपेक्टेशन डिमांड कम रखी तो रिटायरमेंट के बाद भी बड़ा मजा आता है. अब you know your true worth after retirement. Real worth मालूम पड़ती है how much. The government was actually short-changing me. Now I'm earning 5 times what the government gave me without doing anything. Now I'm only giving yarn, not walking, only talking. Okay. Yes.
Talking a heart out, there are a lot of critically analyzed type of questions that appears very clear. So let's say feel something strongly about the topic. I can go negatively.
Okay, I'm so glad you raised this. I would have come on my own. Now listen to this very, very carefully. You will not be strongly negative. At your age, you have to look at the positive part of life. If you have negative thoughts, bring them as critical points and override them with positive points. Or positive, period. There is no argument on that whether you like it or not. For the simple reason, at your age, you can't afford to be negative. Otherwise, आप सर्विस में आ भी गए 4 साल बाद रिजाइन कर देंगे. तो क्या फायदा इतनी मेहनत करने का. मैं उससे कहता हूँ यार बेकार तुमने इतनी मेहनत की यार. अरे एक और चीज समझ के चलिए, अगर आपको रेवोल्यूशनरी बनना है तो झाड़ू पकड़ लीजिए, पार्टी ज्वाइन कर लीजिए. ठीक है ना. सिविल सर्विस में मत आइए. Civil service is not the place for you. You have decided accept certain discipline and work within that discipline. And let me assure you, which I think if you read this book, despite these problems, you can do a lot. तो जो नहीं कर सकते, जैसे जब मैं सर्विस में आया था या पहले भी, when I used to get into a traffic jam, I used to get very agitated. No, some of you do get agitated. So one day my wife asked me, ये कुछ कर सकते हो क्या इसका. हमने कहा कर तो नहीं सकते, तो अपना खून क्यों खौला रहा. We waste so much time over issues over which you have no control whatsoever. I remember I was in the police earlier, so there was a batchmate of mine. He was Director General of Police. He retired very recently. That time he was a young man probationer with me. So one day he walked up to me, he said, "Boss, रात को नींद नहीं आ रही." हमने क्या हो गया? बॉस पेट्रोलियम के दाम बहुत बढ़ रहे हैं. हमने कहा यार बढ़ तो रहे हैं, लेकिन तुम उसका कुछ कर सकते हो क्या? बोले कर तो नहीं सकते, लेकिन देश की आर्थिक स्थिति पर कुप्रभाव पड़ रहा है. They were economists even then, very bothered about the economy. हमने कहा सब ठीक है यार, चर्चा के लिए ठीक है, रात की नींद क्यों हराम करो यार. रात की नींद उस चीज के लिए हराम को कुछ कर सको. बोला हाँ यार बात तो सही कह रहा हूँ, मैं कुछ तो कर नहीं सकता. चला गया. 3 महीने बाद फिर आया, फिर कहता बॉस रात को नींद नहीं आ रही. हमने कहा क्या हो गया यार, पेट्रोल के दाम तो अपने आप ठीक है, बिना तुम्हारे इंटरवेंशन के ठीक हो गए. नहीं बॉस, इंडिया की पॉपुलेशन बहुत बढ़ रही है. मैंने कहा रात को सो जाओ यार, अपने आप ठीक हो जाएगी.